So in the last video, we talked about Windows Server Core and setting up Active Directory. But now we gotta set up DHCP. For this, we will need to create a DHCP or Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol server so we can go ahead and start issuing IP addresses to our devices. So let's go ahead and configure it now. DHCP allows your network to dynamically issue IP addresses to your devices so that it can properly communicate in the network and even outside the network. There are a few main points that you would need to know: your subnet, your gateway, and your DNS server. The subnet is the subnetwork that you are configuring. The gateway is the IP address of your router or firewall. This is the gateway to the other networks or the internet. And DNS server. This allows your computer to know where google.com is via IP address. So let's go ahead and spin up a new server core and configure DHCP within it. We already have the server kind of set up, so we're just going to go ahead and pick up where we left off. First things first, we need to go ahead and set up a static IP address. So we're going to go ahead and select option 8 to set up the IP address. And then we're going to go ahead and select the first one or the only one. It depends on your setup. And then we're going to go ahead and press 1 to set network adapter address. So we're going to go ahead and set it static. Best practice is to make sure that your DHCP server is set on a static IP. So we're going to go ahead and hit S. We're going to type in the IP address, which will be 10.100.0.3. The subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. We'll get into that on a separate series. And then the default gateway, which in this case is 10.100.0.1. After you hit enter, it's going to go ahead and configure everything. Let's go ahead and make sure that it's all set up. And it is. Now we gotta go ahead and set up our DNS server. Gonna be 2. We're going to get the IP address of our domain controller, which is 10.100.0.2. We're gonna go ahead and type in our DHCP server, 10.100.0.2. We don't have an alternate server. We're gonna go ahead and do that, and we're good. Best practice: make sure you name your servers accordingly. So in this one, we're gonna rename the computer. So we're gonna go ahead and select 2. We're gonna name this one DHCP1, just to make it easy. We're changing the computer name. Do we want to reboot? Sure. All right, and it's done. So now we're gonna go ahead and add it to the domain. So there's 2 ways of doing this. One is just selecting 1, join domain, name of domain. The name of the domain is the name of the domain is techbytes.com. Specify domain user. We're gonna go ahead and just name it my administrator account. All right, and that's done. We could go ahead and reboot, but let's take advantage before we reboot and let's install the DHCP server tools. So let's go ahead and hit 15 to exit. And then we're going to go ahead and type in make sure we're on PowerShell, and we're going to type in install Windows feature DHCP include management tools. And we wait. All right. Now that the server is completely set up, we're going to go ahead and restart it. So you can do it one of 2 ways. You can just go to sconfig and hit 15, or just do restart computer. Easy enough.
And we wait some more.
All right, now that the computer is joined to the domain, I'm going to go ahead and log in with administrator. Okay, we got to run 1 more command before 2 more commands before we go ahead and continue. So after that's done, we need to make sure that the DHCP is part of the security groups inside of Active Directory. So we got to do net sh DHCP add security groups. All right, and then restart service DHCP server, and it just restarts the DHCP server service. After restarting the service, we got to do a few more commands. So we need to type add DHCP server in DC DNS name bracket DHCP1. It's the name of our DHCP server, techbytes.com, which is the name of our domain. Close the bracket, dash IP address, and the IP address of our DHCP server. After that's done, let's make sure that it registered. Okay, so we're going to type in get DHCP server in DC. And that's correct. Right, so since we're doing this in PowerShell, we got to go ahead and run this command now, which is set item property, path, registry key, blah, 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 blah. You got it. Basically, this is doing a registry edit to make sure that it's the configuration state is complete. So that's what number 2 means. Go ahead and hit enter. And then we got to do this last part right here. I'm going to set DHCP server v4 DNS settings, computer name, the name of our DHCP server, dynamic updates always, delete DNS RR on lease expiry. That's a mouthful. It basically cleans up your DNS records after the DHCP lease expires, which is very useful, and it's set to true. So I'm going to do that, hit enter. Note, you got to take off the brackets on that last one. Now that we have it configured, this is where the tricky parts begin. So there's 2 ways that we can do this. One, we can just manage everything through PowerShell, or we can use the same tools that we used in the previous video. We're going to go ahead and do that one now. So now we're inside Windows 11. We're going to go ahead and install the DHCP tools right now. So we're going to go ahead and type in optional features, optional features. We're going to go ahead and click here, view features. I'm going to type in RSAT. We're going to click where it says DHCP tools. Hit next, install, and we wait. All right, so now that it's done, if you go ahead here and type in DHCP, we're going to have the DHCP option there. We click in here and boom. Now we just right click on where it says DHCP. We're going to add a server. We're going to go ahead and type in the name of the server, which was DHCP1. So now we have our DHCP server. We're going to go ahead and start creating some scopes. Go ahead and new scope. We're going to name this scope scope 1. Hit next. We're going to start the IP addresses at 10.100.10 to 10.100.250. We're going to make this 255.255.255.0. This is usually your standard subnets, but your application may be different. So we're going to go ahead. We don't have any exclusions. Lease duration is fine. Let's configure some options here. The router is 10.100.0.1. Let's go ahead and add that. Next. Next. Yes, let's activate and finish. So now that's been authorized and activated, you have the DHCP scope right here. Let's go ahead and see if this one got a new IP address. We're going to go ahead to address leases, and there it is. Computers on the network. Now, there's a lot of steps to this thing, and creating multiple scopes can get very tedious. But there's a secret. Remember when I told you is powerful? Well, here is what we can do. We can create a script to create multiple DHCP scopes, and allows us to basically, instead of having to click 1,000 times, this script can do it. Let's go ahead and try it out. What this is going to do is actually going to go ahead and start creating the scopes, all those steps we did in one fell swoop. So when you run the script, it just shows up. There it is. You got your DNS servers, your router, your domain name, your address pools, and everything. This is where the power of comes into place, where you can start automating maybe just not one, but let's say you need to create 20. You can actually do them like this, or through a CSV, or there's 1,000 ways. And in the next episode, I'm going to show you how to do these level of automations. So I hope you like this video. In the next episode, we're going to go ahead and dive a lot more into where we're going to go ahead and get into automation and some basic beginner stuff of scripting and a lot more things. Because when you start tapping into the power of and server core, the possibilities are almost limitless. So go ahead and hit the like button if you liked it. Leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't. I also stream every Tuesday at 8:30 on Twitch and on YouTube. I hope to see you there, and I'll see you on the next time.